I think you've just got to go and do it. People will tell you to not do it, but if you believe you've got a good idea, a good product, or vision for something, you got to just go and do it.
Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Experts in Polo Shirts, Episode 1, From Service Desk to CEO. Each episode, we'll be discussing anything from business and enterprise technology to products and security. I'm Michael, the content producer here at Synextra, and I'm sat here with our resident technical expert and CEO, Chris Piggott. In this episode, we'll be chatting about Chris's rise through the technology industry, and in particular, the growing cloud. Hi, Chris. How are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
Welcome to the first episode of the podcast.
Oh, yeah. We're excited.
The head of content production, Michael. And the dream team in the background.
You're quite a young CEO. I'm sure people are curious to ask, how did you get here? What was the route you took?
Yeah, so my life in technology started back in an MSP. And before that, I was a barista, Starbucks store coffee master, black apron. Making all the drinks and, serving all the customers, and then spotted an ad in technology. I'd always want to work in IT. I used to run a game server hosting business back when I was 15. And I decided that I really liked technology, didn't really know where to start. And I saw an ad for a role that was a junior in a managed service company called Synergy Technology. And I decided to apply. In my interview, I'm still connected with the guy on LinkedIn, shout out Matt. All we talked about for the whole interview was World of Warcraft. And then, we had a second interview with the MD and tech director, and I got the job. It was a really good introduction to technology because we dealt with everything from servers, desktops, you name it, we were messing with it. And then over time, just sort of developed and had some of the roles and worked with different businesses and got to see all different sides of IT. Worked at Manchester City Football Club, and then I was approached for a role at Metronet UK or an ISP, and that's sort of where it all sort of really started for me, because that's where I got to sort of build a business in a business and understand how to commercialize products and services, and I kind of built everything out, and that led to me understanding that there was a huge gap in the market because a lot of customers and partners wanted IT services, but they didn't have the expertise to deliver the cloud in-house. And so I sort of thought, well, hang on a second, there's a business opportunity here. And actually at Metronet, we couldn't really take it to market properly because we didn't want our cloud services to kind of get in the way of our partners and customers. So we had to be kind of sort of under the radar with it, which meant we couldn't really grow it. And I know now that as a business, the sort of combined entity that is M247, they do a lot of cloud hosting. So yeah, it was kind of, that was a number of years ago, sort of like 6 or 7 years ago. Anyway, the business was going through a rapid rate of growth, and they actually got a management buyout. And I decided to go ahead and exit the business. And around the same time, I met an individual called Nasser, who was an investor, who basically said to me, I want to start an IT company. Can you produce a plan? Put together a plan and started Synextra. And that was sort of where it all began, really. And I remember day one, walked into the office. There was 2 desks and that was it. And that's where the business started. That was 6 years ago now, 7 years.
Did you see it grow into the point that it has done?
Yeah, I mean, I always hoped that it would grow. That was always the intention.
Of course.
I guess I didn't sort of realise that it would be the kind of business that we are now. And back when we first started, we would pretty much do anything for anyone, as you always do when you start a company. And we would do, fitting files for customers, installing PCs. We'd do, whatever we could get our hands on, we would do, because we didn't really know what our area of expertise was going to be. And then over time, we sort of realised, well, hang on a second, we're doing all this IT support work. And actually, we could put in Citrix Cloud and we could do away with all this IT support work and have one on a really standardised desktop. And that's really where all of our products that we've got were driven by demands from customers or from us internally. And I think that really is that's what's different about it, is that what I expected to be our sort of core product set is not necessarily where we've ended up, because it's all been driven by customer demand.
So this is just one for me. So what does a tech CEO actually do? Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. So I did a Goldman Sachs course, the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business, which is fantastic. I definitely recommend that to anyone who's a business owner who's looking to,
What does that look like, the Goldman Sachs course?
So I think it's about 6 to 10 weeks, and you do a couple of residentials, and you get assigned effectively like a growth mentor who works with you through your business plan. They provide a lot of training, and obviously I think a lot of people suffer with imposter syndrome, and I definitely do. And you go to that event, and I was perhaps also initially like a little bit critical, like what was I going to learn at the same time? And I wasn't sure, because I've done stuff like that before and it's not been that valuable. But this was amazing. They had really good speakers and lecturers who actually like provided a lot of value in terms of like developing the business and working on a new plan and structuring that. So that was a massive learning experience. It was a huge help.
So beyond that, what do you do day to day?
Me?
Yeah.
Well,
pina coladas or
no, I wish. No, not yet. So I look at basically enabling other people to do their work. So I'm like a facilitator more than I am necessarily like strategic. A lot of my time is spent facilitating others. So whether that's technical work, so whether it might be like we're doing a project that requires a particular set of expertise that I might know stuff about, helping out with that, training people, working with you guys on all the marketing content that we're producing and the new strategy, working with the finance side of the business. So it might be like we're looking at potential like acquisitions, or we're looking at finance changes and how we could improve our cash flow. And that really is like a lot of what my day is about. I tend to be, a lot of my time is spent facilitating others more so than, like my previous role was technical director. And then obviously as part of the management buyout we did, I got promoted to CEO. But what I've sort of done is a lot of my typical CEO responsibilities, I brought in someone to carry those out. So, dealing with finance, legal, HR, employment issues, that's not the bit that, whilst I'm okay at it, it's not the bit that I enjoy. I enjoy being close to customers, like close to the team, and working on solutions for new products and services that we're going to offer. That's my sort of speciality.
So you've managed to retain a little bit that technical aspect of your job that you set out doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because I think where a lot of businesses go wrong that are technology businesses, particularly ones that are PE backed, is that they forget that they're a technical business because they've not got a technical founder anymore. And they lose sight of that, become highly commercially driven, and effectively their products and services sort of fail to meet the demands of their clients. And that's really what I've tried to do is, I'm constantly looking at what new products and services can we offer. Probably so much to the effect that things are always changing as a business, like we're always thinking of new stuff. But I think that's really important to keep you relevant, because otherwise technology changes so fast, you just never keep up.
Did you recognize any signs when you were younger that would lead you down this road with regards to technology, and then beyond that sort of leadership?
I think I've always sort of been interested in like business and technology. I think when I was like 15 and I ran the game service, I mean, I really nearly like really screwed up all of my GCSEs. It came like really close to not having like probably no more than 5, because I just spent every day at home working on my hosting business. And my attendance in that last year was probably something like 1 day a week. It was really, and it got to the stage where if I didn't change something, I don't think I'd ever done as well as I did. I don't know whether that would have been detrimental to how things would have gone in life, but yeah, I definitely sort of had to turn things around because I was spending way too much time working on the game server business.
You just sort of get absorbed within building servers.
Yeah, and just dealing with like customer requests, improving things, provisioning. Because obviously it's not necessarily a huge amount of money by the standards of a business like ours and many others, but when you're doing like £1,000 to £2,000 a week of revenue as a tiny little game server hosting company, that's really cool when you're like 14, 15. Mm. So that just sort of, I was all in on that. I was totally committed to it. What additional products could we offer? What services could we offer? How could we get more clients? And it just grew and grew and grew. But it kind of got to the stage where it was growing so fast that it needed capital. And obviously, aged like 14, 15, there's just no way you've got, 10, 15,000 pounds sat lying around to fund the business. And although we were making decent amounts of money, we also had quite high costs paying third parties. So this plan was to go out and buy hardware and actually establish our own co-location and put dedicated servers in and reduce our costs. And I just didn't have the capital to do it. So it was kind of a good timing, really, because my GCSEs were going down the pan and the business needed money that I didn't have. So I just stepped back from it and left my business partner to it. And then I managed to spend pretty much like every night until like the early hours working on coursework and studying, and managed to, come away with a decent amount of GCSEs in the end.
Do you think that was worthwhile then, going back to do GCSEs?
Yeah, I think so. Like I'm not necessarily a huge fan that, like, obviously education is not everything, but I think good foundational education is important. And that doesn't mean that I don't think GCSEs are, I think it's the English, maths, that's fairly sort of fundamental in a lot of what you do, but the rest, I don't know if it really matters later on in life. I think when you're there at the time, like, it's everything because it's all you're measured on. But as you get older, you sort of realize, like, how often do I actually look at on CVs at people's GCSE results? Like, it's super rare that we look at that.
Yeah.
But that being said, if the CV is poorly formatted or there's grammatical errors, we may discount that candidate.
Yeah, so it all feeds into it anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Going back to sort of leadership style, what influences, if any, does your technical experience feed into your leadership?
I guess I'm like really technically focused, so that means I can be quite in the detail on the technical stuff. So whereas other non-technical founders sort of may struggle to be in the detail and ascertain what might be the quick fix or the fastest solution, or how to get the team from A to B in the right way, that level of detail means I can become quite absorbed in the technology-related issues that we have. So that, I think my leadership style is sort of very focused on the technicals. I like to think I'm quite laid back, but I think I can be very particular on everything that we do, because I've got obviously massive aspirations for what we want to do as a business, and I think it's important to have that focus. So to have someone who is both focused but can articulate that focus well, something I'm not necessarily always that good at. But I think it's that technical focus is really important to a technology business, particularly in its early stages when you've got to get a lot done with a limited number of people. So having the right people around technically to deliver your services is really important.
And what is the biggest challenge when it comes to managing people, do you find?
Just people. So anytime you're managing people, it's just the people themselves. It's how different people interact. It's how, like, for example, like, some people want to be left alone and, given complete autonomy to go and do stuff. Other people prefer to have clear direction. So it's really, you've got to understand all the different personalities at work and how to get the best out of everybody.
Do you enjoy that part of your role?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's.
Would you say that's a favourite part of the role?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of like almost like developing people and growing people. That's what I come to work for. Like, yeah, there's the money and the stuff that comes with it, but for me, it's just like the excitement and the enjoyment of making customers happy and like growing your team more than anything.
And what's the worst part?
The worst part, having to make difficult decisions that don't necessarily please everyone, because you go through business and you can't. In the early days, I tried to please everybody, and I quickly sort of realized that doesn't work, and it becomes a point where you just can't please everybody, and that's really difficult to manage everyone's expectations.
How do you see your company, Synextra, being different from the competition? How does it stand out?
So this is interesting because it's something that we've all been talking about here. So like with the work we've been doing on the content and the marketing and the strategy, it's really difficult in a crowded market to stand out because there's a lot of noise. And I think really what you've got to do is you've got to have almost like a pattern interrupt. You've got to stand out and do something that's really different than everybody else. And obviously something we've been working on with the brand and our position is that we need something to stand out. So I think we've been focused for the past few weeks on like our support and what makes our support different. And a lot of carriers and providers talk about monitoring and out of hours. But one thing we've noticed is that actually they don't deliver that as well as they could. For example, at 3 a.m, one of your servers goes off. Does hosting provider A actually wake up and deal with that alert? And what we've found is that 99% of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, providers aren't dealing with those alerts. And what we do, we actually wake up and, if we need to raise the whole team to fix a customer's issue at 3 a.m, we'll raise the whole team to get the issue resolved. And we sort of realize that's what makes us stand out. It's the support. It's that's our, we kind of, with an IT difference, and, more stuff we've been speaking about there. Sort of the compound effect of small matters. So as an IT department, you've got lots of little challenges. You've got, employee A might be on sick. You've got new application that's going live. You've got new sites opening up. You've got an office move. You've got security concerns. Your backups not work last night. You've got all these sort of small compounding matters that just reduce your effectiveness as a team. And we've kind of identified that actually that's the problem that we solve. We can go in, lay the right groundwork, and give our customers a competitive advantage, which is that we're behind the scenes making sure that your IT department is as efficient as it can be by making sure that your infrastructure is robust and reliable.
What's your typical thought process when you consider a business critical decision?
So I would say that I don't rush. So when I'll put a lot of thought into the stuff that we do. So I often will want time to process and defer making an important strategic decision. I won't necessarily, some stuff, I'll make a decision there and then. If I'm wrong, but it's just about making decisions. But on the big stuff, if it can wait one day and I can go away and think about it, I will do. I won't rush to necessarily make decisions. And in business, there are things where it's critical, we need an answer right now. And I'll go ahead and provide an answer. And if it, I'm not going to be right. I'll be right probably, less times than I'm wrong. That's the nature of the beast, and that's you're just going to make the decisions that keep the business moving forwards.
I feel like I do exactly the same with my artwork. If I can have a night to sleep on it and look at it again in the morning with like fresh eyes, it'll often reveal new things to me that I hadn't seen before.
Well, we've got Stevie in the background, and she'll know what it's like with a short story. We work on something and we go away, and I come back the next day and I don't like it the next day, and that's because I've slept on it. But I think that sort of stuff it's difficult but important, and you have to give yourself time to process those decisions.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for the cloud industry moving forward for the next maybe 5-10 years?
So probably the big one at the moment is security, because as cloud vendors, we are targeted by threat actors because we have a large number of customers on our estate. And that threat continues to evolve all the time, whether that's through ransomware, DDoS attacks, or whatever it might be. That stuff is just going to be more and more important going forwards. And I think what we'll see to drive some of the changes in our market, we'll see the insurance sector refusing to insure businesses without an appropriate level of security cover. And I think that change is probably not that far away. Because if you think about the number of high-profile attacks recently where a large number of managed service or cloud providers have been compromised, insurers are refusing to write policies now on some vendors like that unless they have certain controls in place. And that's a double-edged sword for us, because with our channel market prospects, it gives us kind of an extra route to market. If we can build a product that is highly secure and functional for our channel partners that ticks that box, that means that they can easily get the appropriate cover for their insurance and work with customers that require secure environments. But I think security is probably one of the biggest ones that we are going to have to deal with in the next few years. It's kind of always going to be the challenge with the hyperscalers, but your sort of Azure and AWS, and we've kind of adopted them to deliver services on those environments. But for us, we've got a really different offering to the hyperscalers. And I think for application-centric workloads like where you're developing your own software, AWS and Azure, mainly AWS, are going to be sort of really good for those kind of workloads. It's not that we can't deploy things in our environment like Kubernetes, but we can. But simply, AWS is built for workloads like that. Our goal is to deliver VM-specific workloads and managed networks and security and that wraparound that the hyperscalers will just never offer. And that's kind of how we'll remain competitive in the market, I think, over the next 5 years. And plus, sort of, as I sort of mentioned before, continually developing new products and services that meet the customer's demands quickly and bringing them to market.
What are the most helpful applications and technologies you use day to day? Like,
I love Slack. Slack is my favorite, especially /Giphy. I can go straight to that and conjure up a GIF, no problem. So that's Slack's my favorite. So we started using Monday, which has kind of changed our project management. In fact, we should get Emily on to do a talk about Monday, because we use that now for all our projects. So we put any customer deployments in there. We share that with clients. They can see all the milestones. It makes it super easy. Other applications, I'm a big fan of Xero from a finance perspective, because when I started the business, I knew nothing about finance. I knew money came in and money went out, and that was really where it stopped. But Xero was so easy to use, even from the start. And we've got that hooked up and synchronizing and making payments easier. And that is a breeze for small business owners. What about you? What have you got? What's in your tool chest?
I'll tell you what, since I've started here, like, I don't think I've sent more than 10 emails because of Slack.
Yeah, it's just so much easier.
It's more like it's just quick and easy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in my old job, I used to like write out a full email, hi whoever, and then kind regards at the end, every email, regardless, because if you left those bits out, it might come across a bit sharp, but whereas like in Slack, it's just a continuous conversation. There's no need to worry about it. Yeah,
it's cool. And I think that with Slack, I mean, we tried Teams, and I still much prefer Slack. I think the user interface is just way slicker. But like today, you said about emails. So I hadn't opened my email client. Apart from using my phone this morning, I hadn't opened my email client until just before we came into this. So I've had like a solid 6 hours of no email client because everything's in Slack.
Yeah.
And it's just so much easier because it's just much quicker to get stuff done. And that matters when you're a small business.
What advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to forge their own path through the tech space?
I think you've just got to go and do it. Like, people will tell you to not do it. But if you believe you've got a good idea, a good product, or, vision for something, you've got to just go and do it. Like, a lot of people will tell you, you're mad for quitting your job. You shouldn't leave your work. And I'm not advocating that everyone who's got a business idea just goes and leaves the job, because that's probably not a good start. But there's lots of businesses where you can start them while still in full-time employment. And you can get your idea bootstrapped off the ground and get it in the hands of potential users or get feedback from people. And you can very quickly prove whether that idea is going to be successful or not. And I think for me, it was like, also when we started Synextra, we already had an idea that the products and services would be successful because we, in a previous life, we'd been doing very similar services, but on a different scale. And we knew that that product would translate well, and we knew there was a gap because it's what customers were asking for.
Do you think that's really important then to get to know the product space before you move into an area like that?
Yeah. So any sort of idea you've got, I think you need to put pen to paper. And it's weird actually because about 18 months, 2 years ago, I found in my drawer at home a 5-year forecast that I'd put together and not looked at since. And obviously, we used to kind of look at it quite regularly, but we've not looked at it as actively over the past sort of 18 months. But I noticed that we hit the number that I set out to hit. And I'm not saying that, some people say, oh, well, if you write something down, that means it's going to happen. Well, that's not. I don't necessarily believe in that. But there was a plan put together in terms of the structure and the financials and the market. And I think sometimes it's really useful in your own mind to get stuff down onto paper. Even if that's a 5-slide, PowerPoint business plan. But that definitely needs to include your market research and who you're up against.
I guess it's another way of just visualizing your success, I guess, which a lot of people talk about when they're talking about making a success of something. Visualize it and then do it.
Yeah. Whether the whole write it down and visualize it thing works, I'm not sure. But I guess it gives you good aspirations.
Planning certainly helps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the planning and knowing your market and your competitors, and yeah, definitely.
So it sounds like you've been quite successful up to now, but what was your biggest failure and how did it change you?
This is a good one.
All right.
I like this question. I think so. My biggest failure is we made a mistake probably about 2 years ago where we decided that we were going to hire graduates to do some of our roles. And what happened is we became really busy and we had a large number of new customers and new contracts and wins and technical stuff going on in the background. And it meant that our senior resources weren't available to train our graduates. So it meant these graduates were trying to find their way through our infrastructure and systems and customers, and perhaps weren't as good as they could have been. And that over the last sort of 5 years has been where we've fallen down, is we didn't have the right training scheme and plan for those, those people that we brought in. So yeah, that's kind of one of them. And
so what did you take away from that?
I think if you're going to hire people that are inexperienced, you need to have the right team in place already, the foundational team, to train and develop them.
To catch them if they fall.
Yeah, and people need to go in at the deep end to learn and develop their knowledge and be given like trust and everything. But you've got to still have the right people to train them, because we've got a big mantra, it's like learning on the job. But if you've never done that before, you do need some level of training to understand how all those things fit together. Because without that, it will take 5 times as long to develop and grow.
Did you get any decent people from it?
None of them were bad people, but it's we weren't creating the right environment for success for all of them. And some of them could do really well out of it, but others couldn't. And I don't think it's necessarily that we had bad or good people, it's that we had a bad environment for them to work in. Finally,
just what's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning?
I think it's coming to work and building something awesome. Like we not necessarily a massive business, but we've got aspirations of being much bigger. I think for me, it's the quality of the products. We really put a lot of effort into building great stuff. So we really focus on like enterprise technology and bringing that to small businesses because we know it's robust and reliable. And we've had a few ventures where we've tried to use sort of lower cost stuff. So shout out 45 drives, the worst storage product we've worked with. We've used some stuff, and it probably wasn't all the vendor's fault. But if you want to run a lean, you've got kind of like 2 ways you can go in technology. You can run a lean team and use more expensive off the shelf products, or you can go with less expensive stuff but probably need more resources in terms of staffing to maintain that infrastructure. And we've gone for the sort of expensive infrastructure, but the lean team. So we run a small team, but we only need a small team because we've invested in the right platform and infrastructure. And that's what's probably made the difference for us over the past 5 years, is we've not had to, because we're not going out and hiring apprentices or graduates anymore. We're hiring really experienced people. So we don't need a huge team to deliver that infrastructure. We've got a really large number of VMs under management and data protected, but we're doing that with a lean team because of that investment into infrastructure.
Yeah, it's like getting the foundations right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes a massive difference. And there's lots we've done in the last year that I wish we'd done years ago, just so we get the right foundations, like on the project management side and the compliance side, getting that sort of really locked down and building it into the core processes of the business so that we're not rushing around every month or every 3 months to go and complete a load of tasks that relate to a compliance activity like 27,001. We've just got it built into what the business does. So is this wrapping up our first podcast of many?
Yep.
Oh man, it's been really good. I can't wait to do more.
It's been a pleasure.
I feel like we need more gadgets though in the studio. We need more lights.
A few more lights.
Yeah, you can never have too many lights, especially flashing ones. Maybe a little fish tank.
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, it's been really good. It's been great chatting.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do more.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on your own podcast. So thanks, Chris, for a little background on your career. Moving forward, Chris will be our guide, taking us through the digital landscape. If you'd like to hear more, be sure to subscribe. If you'd like to stay in touch, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube and have anything to ask, drop a comment below. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for listening.